Let's start this lesson off by looking at an alternative way of initializing a two-dimensional array. We start off just as before. We'll use the grades example again. But rather than call the constructor, we just begin by typing in the list. So we're going to just assign some random grades. We'll do a 3x3 array. So one more row. So now we have initialized grades as a two-dimensional array with 3 rows and 3 columns. Let's say we wanted to compute the average. One thing we can't do is use IntelliSense to compute the sum. Because if you'll notice, sum does not exist as a method for two-dimensional arrays. So we're going to have to write code to get the sum. And that is a good candidate for a method. So let's write a method to do that. And I'll demonstrate another nice little feature of C# when it comes to arrays, especially two-dimensional arrays. So our parameter is going to be a two-dimensional array. We'll call it ARR. And now notice I'm not going to pass in the number of rows and number of columns. I'll explain why in just a second. So I'm going to create a variable sum, and then I'm going to begin a loop. This will be an outer loop, so we're going to start the row equal to 0. Then we're going to say row less than and equal to ARR get upper bound sub 0. And what that's going to do is that's going to return the upper bound of the array, which is going to be for rows. This is the first dimension, dimension 0, and that's going to be the number 2 because the rows are numbered 0, 1, 2. So then we'll just write plus plus row. Then we'll start the inner loop for call equals 0, call less than or equal to ARR dot get upper bound, and this time we want the columns, and that's sub 1 plus plus call, and then sum plus equal ARR row comma call, and that's it. Then we return sum, and that's the definition. Get upper bound is useful for not making us have to pass row and column sizes to methods. So now we can compute the average very simply by creating a variable for sum, calling SumArray with grades, and then create a variable average and divide sum by grades.length. Length is still available as a property. And then we can display the result. And we didn't display the original content, so we'll just have to trust it. It's going to be somewhere in the 80s, obviously. We run the program. Oh, actually a bit better than that. That last student had really high grades. So we can pull this down and see that it looks very close to being correct. Anything else we can do with a two-dimensional array, you've already seen it with a one-dimensional array. So I don't think I need to cover any more material here. The key in this lesson was understanding that get upper bound can be used to return the number of rows and the number of columns by passing the correct parameter or argument to get upper bound. 0 is for rows and 1 is for columns. So having said that, that finishes this lesson, and now we're ready to move to the first exercise, working with arrays.